Welcome to the Shadow Mike podcast and YouTube channel, which aims to provide you with language, tools, and guidance in your journey towards personal and relational wholeness. We'll discuss topics ranging from psychology, spirituality, leadership, sexuality, and more. My name is Michael, and I will be your guide for stimulating musings and host for insightful interviews with thought leaders, practitioners, and experts who have a thing or two to share about living an integrated and meaning-making life. Whether you're looking to deepen your connection with your interior world, overcome challenges in your relationships, or expand your psychosomatic horizons with fresh perspectives and paradigms, the Shadow Mike podcast and YouTube channel offers a safe, playful, yet challenging space for dialogue and introspection. It is all a gift, so let's go enjoy it together. Welcome back to the Shadow Mike podcast and YouTube channel. I have with me my dear friend, who I call Shadow Jess, Jessica Alfaqih, and she's going to talk today about the work she does, because honestly, when I think about the work she does, it's basically like if you were to mix just like the witchiest archetypal healing work all into this like conglomerate. That's what she does. She just brings that energy into the world. She has an exciting event coming up, so if you're listening to this months, years down the road, don't worry about that. But if you're listening to it before the event, you have to sign up. It's virtual. It's going to be life-changing. So, Jess, welcome to the Shadow Mike podcast YouTube channel.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be on the Shadow Mike podcast YouTube channel. It was such a blessing to meet you and to feel that initial like buzz of excitement of like, here's someone who I can talk to about this deep work, and here's someone who understands archetypes and understands the power that we get when we can work with the things that already exist within us. So it's been such a blessing to know you, and I'm so excited to continue our conversations.
Yeah, so could you kind of give us a 30,000 foot view of the work you do, maybe even just like how you got into it, maybe the transformational experience that you've had, and then, just the work you do for people, and then we can talk about your upcoming class, Deep Magic.
Beautiful. So if we zoom out, 30,000 feet, we are looking at a beautiful mountain landscape over the Yosemite Valley, where I had a psychedelic experience that was directly tied to an experience of pleasure. So I'd been going through a long dark night of the soul. It was like 4 years where I was just stuck feeling like, what is my purpose? What am I here for? The jobs, the careers that I'd built for myself just weren't doing it for me anymore. And so I've been really reckoning with that for a long time. And this one magical moment with plant medicine, with pleasure, and feeling the pleasure just build up in my body. And I had the experience looking up at that mountaintop where I felt like I was a little kid on Mount Olympus. And I just gotten a hold of Daddy Zeus's thunderbolt and didn't know what kind of power I was dealing with, what I was doing, but I had the thunderbolt. And I wished in that moment so deeply for someone to show me what to do with all of this energy, what to do with all the energy coursing through my body, how to use this power that I knew was like now awakened within me. And when I looked to that mountaintop, I saw where the teaching would happen, but there was nobody there. Through a series of events, things started just kind of clicking around, like your power comes from your sensual magic. It's when I feel my most authentic self come through. It's when I feel most anchored to like power, confidence. And I wanted to give that to other people, especially because I see so many people struggling with systems of oppression that tell us what our bodies should do, how our pleasure should feel, what our relationship should look like. So many shoulds. We just get like totally caked in should. And I wanted to help people break free from the limitations forced on us by society, by experience, by our own internal narratives, and help liberate sensual power so that we could also liberate personal power. Because I think when you go into your sensuality, you're really just looking at the most vulnerable, magnetic, powerful pieces of yourself. And that translates directly to like your identity and how you show up in the world.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, to me and many of the people that listen, and also many of my clients, the idea of sexuality, sensuality, pleasure being core to your identity, core to your human experience. For some, that's going to be like, yeah, of course. Others, they're going to be like, yeah, of course, but I have no idea what to do with that. Others are going to be like wildly confused about how it could even be possible that it's core, because everything they've been told is that it's in some ways like at best tolerable. So we're on the Shadow Mike podcast, YouTube channel. Like, can you connect pleasure, sensuality, sexuality to shadow, and like what you've seen in terms of how it's kind of disconnected from conscious engagement in people, and what avenues are most accessible, I guess, for people to connect with those parts of themselves?
Yeah, when you look at the narratives that shape your feelings about sex, when you look at like your relationship to sex and sensuality, pleasure, sensuality, really also being just how you experience the world, you know, through like touch, smell, sight. Those messages that either totally separate you from it and say like sex is something that you have to struggle against or like be in right relationship to, and we'll tell you what that right relationship is, or if it's something that you can embrace as a part of yourself, but maybe have had less than desirable experiences, as many of us would rather have not had the experiences we've had around sex. When you can look at those experiences and do shadow work around them, so really like being willing to see how they've shaped your personal narrative, who you enter relationships with. I have a client who pleasure was so taken away from her as a kid. It was shamed. She was, you know, deeply, deeply holding herself back from being able to experience pleasure, from being able to experience orgasm. And she chose partners who wouldn't threaten that. So she chose partners who wouldn't engage. They were like, fine with like, I'll just pleasure you. I don't ask for anything in return. Don't pressure me. We're good. And when she had this reckoning with, I want more for myself, she started to look at her whole life, all the choices that she's made, who she's been in the world because of this. So I think no matter if you're feeling separated from it or you're feeling connected to it, but there's like gunk in the way, you're doing shadow work with something. And when you're doing shadow work with something, when you're willing to really look at how that's impacted and influenced your beliefs, your actions, how you show up, it all allows you to like reclaim that power and take that power back and create your own narratives, your own definitions for what sexuality, pleasure. So I call myself a sensual empowerment coach. We're really looking at how can we reclaim the power from our experiences and the narratives that have sought to disempower us, and create our own definitions that might not be like complete sexual freedom, like 1960s, summer of love vibes, but you get to co-create your own definition with some, like, all the stuff in your life that makes sense to you.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, there's so much to explore. I'm just thinking for myself, for so many that would be listening, and I mean, sexuality, sensuality, pleasure feels even further, removed from the solar system of possibilities for so many. Wow. I mean, accessing not only those experiences, but you touched on the beliefs, right? What I would call complexes that live in the unconscious that tend to be the templates for how you engage all areas of life, right? And if sexuality, your sexual, sensual pleasure complex is essentially, when it's triggered, it triggers fear, a sense of like, I'm not safe. I have to act this way, right? Because to give to give sexually is maybe a bit more comfortable. It's a lot more comfortable because there's a lot of control. To receive is wildly threatening because it's essentially kind of opening yourself up vulnerably and losing a bit of that control. What is something that like someone can do? I mean, just in terms of like the beginner level practice for them to begin engaging, maybe not even just sexuality and pleasure, but like engaging the beliefs that like for them to start mining those out and discovering what those underlying beliefs are.
I love starting with what you want. I love starting with the question of, what do you desire? And if you can kind of feel the blocks, it's okay that the blocks are there. I like asking this question twice. So I ask it initially. What is it that you're hoping to experience? And people will have a pretty good idea of like, well, I don't want to feel so much shame. I don't want to feel so blocked. I don't want to feel like I can't ask for what I want. We have a pretty solid handle on like what we don't want. So we can start there. You can also start with little glimmers of what it is you do want to invite in. Maybe it's just like, I want to feel like I can prioritize myself. I want to feel like I can even connect and understand what sensuality is to me if I can let go of the narratives on both sides of like wild, free sexuality. Maybe that doesn't fit. Super repressed, oppressed. Maybe that doesn't fit. So I love starting there, and the beauty of just kind of laying out what your beliefs are is that they're going to trigger the little voices that say, oh, but you can't have that. Oh, but in the past you haven't been able to have this or trust this. So, and once those critical voices come up is when you have some juice to work with. So that's like the belief side of things where you just kind of allow stuff to bubble up to the surface. It's a great journaling practice to gain a little bit of clarity. There's another side of this that is really juicy to play with, which is the archetypal embodiment side. So if you're struggling to even lay those beliefs out, maybe that feels like level 2. I'm not there yet. Can you find archetypes? And you can do this through tarot. You can do this through like images, even like museum images or historical images. Can you find someone who just represents or you feel drawn to? So like Greek mythology. Is there someone in the pantheon? Like, does Athena do it for you? Does Aphrodite feel a little like triggering? Like, where are we in this? When you look at like ancient Egyptian gods and goddesses, just trying to like see who feels magnetizing and then exploring their story and seeing the elements that you feel drawn to. And that might give you a better roadmap for here's what it is that I want to embody, but like, ooh, that feels spicy.
Yes, you're talking about like using projection for your benefit, right? Like, let's put out images around you and what are you, where's the charge is the question I would ask. Like, is there someone that when you look at them, whether they're a Greek goddess or god or a person in your life, is there a charge that's either negative, right? Like you're leaning away from them and you're like wanting to not engage because they have energy you don't want to be around? Or is there a positive charge, right? Like you want that, you are drawn to that, whether you want to be them or you want to fuck them or maybe a little bit of both. Like, there's all kinds of, it's following the charge, right? Like where is the energy? And I love that you use tarot too, because there's such a misconception about tarot, generally speaking, that it's like telling the future all the time, or, you access it to basically bypass having to think for yourself and you're just going to consult the tarot. Right. But I like to think of tarot as like mirrors, right? They're little mirrors to help you see yourself better. And in sexuality and sensuality and pleasure, I'm like, yeah, what are the cards that hold like a pretty significant charge, positive or negative, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's an interpretive tool. And that's kind of why I love archetypal magic, archetypal medicine, is because you already have an inherent understanding of certain archetypes. Like we got Daddy Zeus, like big thunderbolt guy in the sky, and you've got, Hera, the jealous mother. They already hold so much charge. And whether you're familiar or not with that archetype, you can still kind of draw it from the collective unconscious. The stories that have been around for ages and ages and ages are already infused with that charge, and some people can pick up on that without really knowing the story. When you're able to tap into something that are like wisdom that already exists within you, and this kind of leads into why I love working with the elements, because fire, water, air, earth, spirit. You have lived experience of them. You are lived experience of them. You have all of them within you. Mm-hmm. When you have something, like you said, that you can project against, you're accessing a form of innate wisdom. So when you're looking at, who are the archetypes I feel drawn to? Who are the ones I feel really charged against? It can help you get clarity that might be harder to look at within yourself when you're just saying, like, what is my upbringing imprinted me with? What are those stories that I'm carrying with me? Let me outsource some of that. Let me have the cards or the images do some of that work, and let me just see how I relate to them and how I interpret the messages, and then where can I see those within myself?
Yeah, you really, Jason Smith, who's a Jungian analyst, author, podcaster, uses the metaphor of a rear view mirror when it comes to projecting. It's like when you're projecting, you're looking at something in front of you, but in fact, you're seeing something behind you. And in fact, if you don't have that rear view mirror, it's almost impossible to drive safely and to look behind you, right? You need the mirror in order to see more clearly what your surroundings, like what you can't see.
Right.
So a lot of times people I work with, especially coming from Christian environments in particular, will say, oh, like projecting is bad. They'll assume it's bad because it sounds a lot like judging someone. But I will invite them, like, lean into those judgments, like bring it all out, because ultimately that's your stuff anyway. And it will help you to see yourself more clearly and actually become less judgmental. Or, if it's a positive projection, it'll help you to become less enamored and less drawn to a person, and almost like be off balance when you're with them. You can see them as a human being because you start to take back all those God-like qualities in yourself that you had been projecting on them. So you talked about elemental magic. You've talked about archetypal magic. I mean, there's all kinds of things here, and you have a 6-week course coming up. So could you talk about, obviously, that on a general level, but talk about this course and this class that people have the opportunity to engage in remotely, and what they could expect from engaging in that class.
Yeah. I've been sitting with this question for a long time, which is when people come into my coaching containers, my goal is to equip them with the skills and resources that they can then go out into the world. Once we get them really settled in, like, I've had the transformation that I want them to be able to go back and do that over and over and over again, because the shit's still going to come up. You might have fixed your attachment in relationships, and fixed is a weird word, but you might have reclaimed your power and found more alignment with your attachment style and moved toward those goals and resources you want, which is more relationship security. Again, it could be more pleasure and self-prioritization, maybe self-love. Once you've achieved that, shit's gonna still get kicked up. It doesn't just go away. So I really want to give people a deep understanding of how they can continue to take their power back from situations that disempower them, how to continue to move forward in aligning with the things that they desire, the thing that feels like it's on their path and their potential. I'm a master practitioner of neurolinguistic programming, which is a wonderful way that we can work in a coaching container to do like, let's clear those blocks and like have you have the embodied experience of that power. I don't want to have to just do that in session. I want to be able to give people resources so they can go do that on a Monday, you know? And so I was sitting with that question of how I think it's great to learn something like neurolinguistic programming. It's great to learn something like somatics, but those can take time to digest, to figure out the frameworks for and like the uses and all of that. And then I started to realize that I work so closely with archetypes and I work so closely with the elements because they're easy. Those are the practices that I find myself drawing on when I'm triggered, when I'm really like going through it, because they don't require a lot of like, let me remember the steps, let me remember the principles of this practice, you know, so I can do this for myself. You can draw on the resources of elements in an instant. Because again, you have such a close relationship to them. You are the elements. Your skin, your bones are earth. You've got like fire, electricity, your actions. You've got water in all forms. Your body expresses water in so many different ways. And you have air, which is your breath, your thoughts. Becomes really easy to start to notice. I'll share a personal example. This past week, my mind was working overtime. My thoughts were just like spiraling out of control. I was focused on all the shit that's going wrong. I was like, lack. But here's what you got to figure out. Start problem solving now. Oh, you're thinking about this. Stop thinking about this. Think about this. And it was just like out of control. And I can recognize, okay, I've got an imbalance in air right now. I'm not going to be able to balance air with more air. So the thoughts aren't going to be the thing that's going to help me. What balances air? You can think about it. If I pair air with fire, what's going to happen? The fire is going to rage. Fires love air. So if I'm having all these shitty, disempowering, oh, woe is me thoughts, and I pair that with action, that action might be like a steamroll toward burning it all down, externally or internally. What happens if I pair air with water? Well, I think of the windy sea and I think of storms being generated. And I think of like, okay, that's actually if I pair that with like my emotions or try to pull these thoughts into my subconscious or do some work around that, I might be kicking up more than I can handle. What happens with air when I build it with earth? Well, I can create a container for myself. I can actually shelter from all of the excess air from these winds. So what do I need? What does earth represent to me? And this is something that you can do personally. But when I think of earth, I think of like, okay, stability. I can think of going inward, going underground, but it's very steady. It's very foundational. So what I did is I went and grounded. Like I literally just like went outside, put my feet on the ground, and I visualized. So I'm sure that you do this with your clients a ton, but when we speak in images and when we speak in emotion, our subconscious can listen to us because our subconscious will speak in imagery and emotions. We can hear and we can receive or give. And so I grounded and I just imagined roots growing down. I imagined myself sinking deeper into the earth, being able to release, pull the thoughts down through my body into the earth. Long story short, I was able to give myself that rebalance so quickly. And I will say that I tried to fight it with thoughts at first, and that was not working. That kind of just like kept me in the deep spiral. But the minute I was like, nope, I'm doing the practice, I'm going to do earth, I was able to come into a sense of like calm. The wind had kind of blown its course. And
wow. Okay, yeah, keep going. So I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just like, I'm learning. I'm writing notes down.
I love your pen action. it's mind blowing. Like, saying it doesn't quite give you that felt experience because you're like, yeah, okay, a lady goes and stands outside and imagines roots going down from her feet. But there's so many ways that you can work with earth. I also did a cold plunge that day to really like shock my system, get me out of the thinking mind into my body. So again, that's grounding. I have a friend who, whenever I'm like, oh, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed or something's, have you drinking water today? Because even though it's the element of water, drinking is a grounding experience. So there's all these ways in which we're working with elemental magic already. But when you can put yourself in that framework and just like, if I start thinking about things like this, I have access to so many more resources.
Wow. Okay. So a few things. One, when I think it wasn't that long ago that if I heard the word magic, I really didn't understand what that meant at all. And my assumption was kind of like when people say like, yeah, it's going to be magical, it's like, it's just going to be fun or it's going to be whatever, like, or Disney World. But like, when I think about magic, I think about energy in motion or the practice of moving energy. And when I think about archetypes, right, there's a lot written about archetypes, but archetypes are essentially energy, and any image, any experience of an archetype, is something that we experience or that we feel or that we communicate through. But the archetypes themselves are simply the energy, and we really need an image. We need an experience with them in order to move them. So I feel like I even have more clarity around like how magic, archetypal magic, like what that means. It is essentially the movement of energy and like the practice of moving energy. Would you say that's like the simplest way to put it, or a simple way to put it?
Yeah, and I would highlight the word practice, right? So magic for me is awakening your inner wisdom. So you don't have to outsource to learn magic. You can use it from what you already know. And sometimes you just got to clear the blocks away to be able to see the thing. And it's that practice of moving energy. The story that I described was like, yes, we're moving energy too much up here. Let's root and bring it down here where we have more to hold it. It's a practice of moving energy. And it's a practice of alchemy. It's a practice of transforming, alchemizing, right? So we bring air down to earth. Then once we're like more settled and calm, we can move into something like action and fire. We can move into something like confidence because I've now brought more clarity to my situation instead of acting from a place of confusion. So it's a movement of energy so that you can alchemize and work with more elements. You can just keep working with elements and keep moving in the directions that you want to move. Release and go forward.
And like even how all of the elemental language is like connected to the ways that we talk about things. Like if someone's like, yeah, I've just been in a fog, it's like, okay, so you've been almost trapped inside of some air-like substance. It's like water that's floating in the air. Like, what do you need to do? What element would allow you to feel released, to feel clarity, right? Like that you're essentially helping people not only map out how they typically get stuck, but like how they can continue to practice unsticking themselves and moving towards something that's more free-flowing and generative and creative, rather than like, staying stuck and then just waiting for the winds to blow and, sleep it off. You can actually start working with it today, and maybe the whole day doesn't have to be just a big day of like, ugh, and fogginess. You can actually move that energy now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And because it's a practice, the more that you practice, the better you get, the more innate it is. And then all of a sudden you're not even practicing anymore. It's just like, the fog comes in, you let the water flow, and it disperses, and here you are now, So you just have this beautiful way of working with your body and its natural expression. So I'm always advocating, like, let's not work against your nervous system. Let's not work against the way that you're already showing up, your deepest ingrained patterns. It takes a really long time, or like a magnificent peak experience. Like psychedelics can offer a huge peak experience for your, deepest ingrained patterns. But then once you have that epiphany or you leave that moment, it's so easy to slip back into the groove. So I'm here saying, let's not fight the groove. The groove is already there, and that's a gift. Because your body's already done that work for us, we're just going to ever so slightly start shifting the way we relate to the groove or the action that we take once that same old triggers. We're doing the smallest thing that's going to help reroute your result.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so can you get really specific about this course, this class that you have coming up, and like, what is it that, like, if someone is dealing with X or blank, like, they're a great fit for this, and then what is it that you hope people will encounter and leave with from the 6-week class?
Yeah. Really, if you have been wanting to experience a shift, if you've been in therapy for years and years and like something just hasn't moved in the way that you really want it to move, this is why this class exists. Is because I want to give you the ability to do that for yourself on a daily basis in the most minute, easy, fun ways, so that you can make those shifts to have that big transformation. You're not relying on, okay, well, we'll work on this when I'm in session, when I'm able to talk to someone else, that's when we're going to do this work. The reason I call it magic too is because it's so surprising at how fast and effective it can be. And it's actually working against traditional models of therapy, again, which are working against your grooves, are working against your instinctual patterns that are already primed within you. So this course is for people who want to self-resource, who want to be able to create positive change for themselves and do it in a way that, like, they don't have to learn. It's only 6 weeks. It's only 6 weeks. Like, it's not you're spending years and years to get a certification in something. You're really just like getting the framework and having some practice for how to work with these elements. And it's going to be like, aha, I get it. I can go do it now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm thinking through the ears of so many of the people I work with. Energy as a topic is not really valued from the collective backdrop for most people that I work with, and many of us have built language around it, but it has been something. It's like energy just sounds really esoteric. It sounds really like, like hard to nail down or like really understand. But what I hear you saying is it's like there's an element of like developing a relationship with what you're experiencing. You just haven't really been taught or been able to cultivate like what those experiences are, right? Because like you talk about fire, right? Mm-hmm. When someone is angry, people will talk about, I've got a fire in my stomach, or I just feel like a burning in my chest, or like my hands feel like, so tense and I'm ready to move. So it's like everyone already is experiencing these things. You're just like, let's put some words and language and bring it into consciousness so that you can actively start moving it around and practicing the flow of energy. The flow of energy, honestly, in my opinion, I think energy movement is perhaps some of the most profound work I've ever experienced, because it puts me in a place of agency that I didn't know was possible. Like, I did not know that I could do that for myself. I thought for many, many years that this is something that just had to somehow happen, or that like I would need another external person to wander across my path and help me move something. But it's like, oh, no. Like, you have the capacity to do this for yourself. Frankly, it's mind blowing. And I have to say, like, I highly recommend anyone listening, like, sign up. Like, we will have all the links in the show notes. But like, do this course, because moving that energy not only like makes you feel better, because it's not just about feeling better or being better. It is actually about aligning with your life. And that can come at a cost at times if you are misaligned with your life, but it ultimately, aligning with your life is, in my opinion, the only life to live. That's what we want to be moving toward. So yeah, maybe just some final thoughts on as people wrap up the course, or, when they get done, like, what is your hope that people will be able to do at the end of this 6 weeks?
I'll anchor this into an example. I have a client who has been stuck in this loop, this little like infinity loop of getting triggered in jealousy, performing certain behaviors and actions that lead to anger, resentment, and that cascades. And then she's so hyper focused on, why am I so angry? Oh, right, that thing my partner did. Loops back into jealousy and staying hyper vigilant for all of these things that say, yes, there's reason to be jealous. Look at all this evidence that I have. We're looking back, we're looking in the rearview mirror, but there's a stack of evidence. When she was able, so when we're in these loops, and this could be something around like when I want to feel confident and big, I'll try to be big and expressive, and then I'll get a response and reaction from people that's like, oh, maybe actually that didn't feel good. That wasn't received in the right way. So then I go back to being small, and then I'm trying to feed confidence, and then I kind of go back in these loops. So when you're stuck in a loop like that, it can be really helpful to say, there's somewhere on this loop where I need to do something different. And that giving you the agency to do something different. My friend couldn't change her jealousy trigger. Those triggers existed in her relationship. She couldn't change her response to it, because even on those days where she's like, okay, I'm not going to make a fuss about this, you're not overriding your subconscious. All the good intentions in the world are going to come out. Your tone's still going to come out, and you're going to be bratty and whatever your normal pattern is. So we're not working either to be changing beliefs with like affirmations that feel like hollow, like I'm so secure, this is so wonderful, everything's going great. No, your body's going to call bullshit, right? So we're really working to give people an experience of the new result. So when you come into the class container, we're going to work with elements, and we're just going to hammer your body in the gentlest, most pleasurable way. We're going to hammer your body with that felt experience of, here's the disempowering bullshit that I've been dealing with. Here's the new results. Wow, that feels good. We'll do that over and over and over so that your body knows how to access that. So when they leave the course, I hope you'll join us on this magical ride. When you leave this course, you will know where you're going. So it's not like just framed in abstract, okay, now I have to like put this into practice. We'll be doing it over and over for the 6 weeks so that you're going to come away already having had that experience of, I was feeling jealous before. I know how to route that to security. Now I've made a new loop.
You're like rerouting the psychic infrastructure. I mean, rather than going down that same path or trying to somehow like be diametrically opposed to that, the hollow affirmations. I love that you mentioned that. It's just how it's a caricature really of this kind of work. And I was thinking about John Handy, from SNL, like when I was a kid, that would say, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me. You know what I mean? Like those things. I mean, here's the thing. If you can work enough on those underlying limiting beliefs, like you can replace them, but like as a defense, it's not an option. As a defense, it's like a person trying to stand in front of an elephant and be like, okay, here it comes. That elephant's charging. I'm going to tackle it. No, you're going to get out of the way, or you're going to get run over. And that's what happens when you try to go against the subconscious that's already going,
Right. Yes. And we are so blessed that you are going to be teaching a segment on shadow and spirituality.
Yeah. Oh, I'm pumped about that. I think the idea, like, I think about authentic spirituality as like kind of the thing that is orienting me right now, because it's so, there are so many assumed unconscious limiting beliefs that come from mythology, religion, spirituality that we inherited. And it's not even we inherited it. We were born into it as an atmospheric reality, and we've been breathing. I call it the common Christian myth, and I use the common Christian myth to basically indicate like the common kind of atmospheric beliefs that anyone born and raised in the West, because like there are a million versions of Christianity, but it is like even in pockets where Christianity is not the dominant religion, Christianity or the common Christian myth is the atmosphere we're in, right? Because the laws, the family structure, like all the sidewalks are made for monogamous couples, right? So like there's all sorts of ways that it's just embedded. And if we don't look at how all of that stuff has just soaked into our system, and then start to think like, what do I actually, like, what's my actual experience that is authentic to me? Like, what are the spiritual practices? What are the ways and the images and experiences that give voice to the archetypal divine, right? Because if we keep trying to wrap our experience around a divine God image that is foreign to our true lived authentic experience, well, we're going to continue to fight against ourselves again, right? Like we're going to try to align ourselves with an external divine image. And in the common Christian myth, by the way, the divine image is all powerful, all knowing, all seeing, super judgmental, also super loving. So very personality. There's a lot of instability in the personality of the common Christian myth divine image. So we have to start connecting with what is authentic. Like, what's our authentic experience of the divine, and then cultivating a relationship with that, which honestly, it's connected so much to this, like to elemental archetypal magic, because really when we talk about the divine, we're not talking about anything outside. And even if we are, it doesn't matter. What matters is what we're connecting to within us that is shaping and giving life to everything around us.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I love that you're focused. The work that we both do is how are you coming into alignment with your deepest knowing and your deepest truth, and what makes sense for you right now. It doesn't have to be forever, but what makes sense to be generative for you right now to continue to open these spaces so you can continue to grow. This is actually why I like to ask that question twice. One is like, what's your immediate goal? Where do you want to go? Back to our pleasure conversation. I ask it a second time, usually after the 6 month of working with someone, the 6 month mark, because once you've cleared the shit out of the way, you have a whole new direction. You have a whole new answer to that question. And it's so much bigger than you could have imagined because you're kind of blockaded by this stuff. So, you and I are very centered on how do we create the alignment while recognizing that that's your trajectory. And then once you're in this trajectory, maybe you want to go over here. Maybe you want to go over here. Maybe you want to go over here. But it doesn't have to be this like final conscription for the rest of your life.
Yeah. It's psychic, spiritual, psycho-spiritual flexibility.
Yeah.
Right. There's you can play, right? Like, I mean, it's just like when I say flexibility, I'm thinking of a kid or a bunch of kids playing on a playground. Like there's just freedom to be. And if there's anything that I think the common Christian myth or any common mythology that is accepted by like a broad system it tends to constrict. It ascribes how you should show up, and so then like it's impossible to play. It's impossible to just be. You have to align your soul, for better or for worse, with external pressures and expectations. And I mean, this is, in many ways, this work is about liberating you to engage the childlike, playful side that's always been there, but it's not. But it's also whole now, right? Like we can bring it into fullness, because you can't go back to being a child either. There's a misconception, I think, with like, oh, like I need to be childlike, so I need to, in some ways, become really innocent, and I need to become really almost unconscious again. But it's like, no. We're talking about bringing all that unconsciousness into its fullness in relationship with consciousness, and living from that place of just center, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Amen.
Oh, preach it. We're going to have the worship team come up here. No, all eyes closed and heads bowed. No, we're not going to do that. Jessica, thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. And we're going to have more. The Elemental Magick 6-week course coming up. And again, links are in the show notes. Follow us on Instagram and all of our social medias, and just to stay up to date on offerings that are coming up. So, Jessica, thank you so much for joining, and take care.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mike. I'll talk to you soon.
Hi, Michael here. Hey, seriously, thank you for listening and engaging the Shadow Mike podcast and YouTube channel. I trust today's episode gave you something to reflect on or illuminated a new trailhead to your hidden life. If this episode resonated with you, you can subscribe, leave a comment or review, and share it with your people. This really helps spread the word and boosts our digital presence. Remember, growth isn't a straight line, and we're all figuring it out as we go. I'm grateful to be in this unfolding and excavating work with you. Until next time, be yourself. You've got a good self. And remember, it is all a gift.